Efforts are in place across the globe to preserve our native habitats and prevent invasion by non-native species. To achieve this, diversity-rich areas are protected against development and disturbance. But does preserving land actually protect native biodiversity? To answer this, a study was conducted at Michigan State University that measured floristic changes in a natural preserve on campus. Natural landscapes change over time. What was once a field may become a forest, seeds disperse to new places, some species vanish, and others move in. But fragments of these landscapes remain, if you know where to look. Michigan State University's campus in East Lansing is home to several woodlands that, unlike the vast majority of Michigan's Lower Peninsula, were only selectively cut rather than clear-cut. Thus, they may represent something similar to how plant communities once looked and functioned. One of these is Baker Woodlot, a 73-acre fragment of beech maple forest. Because fragments like these are small, rare, and contain high levels of biodiversity, botanists are very interested in whether they are stable over time. They face numerous challenges including development, invasive species, and overuse. Nature preserves attempt to mitigate these problems by giving places like Baker Woodlot extra protection. However, does this protection work? Do our precious fragments of remaining natural areas safeguard native plants over time? Documenting changes in natural landscapes takes a great amount of time and means collaborating with botanists from the past, in the present, and also preparing for future research across timescales that span decades. In 1969, a team of researchers from the MSU Herbarium finished a project that documented what plant species were growing in Baker Woodlot. Another generation of botanists from the herbarium recently completed a survey of plants to see what had changed over the intervening 40 years. Together, the two teams collected hundreds of specimens that were deposited at the herbarium. This project required a mastery of fieldwork, plant collecting, plant identification, data collection, and data analysis, all to make new discoveries. The plant specimens from both studies were accessioned, preserved, and databased for use in future studies as well. Simply counting the number of species at 2 points in time told the researchers whether the number of species increased or decreased overall. There turned out to be a 3% increase or a gain of 11 species. So that means protecting the woodlot is working, right? Well, in determining the quality of natural areas, we care about more than just the total number of species. One of the goals of setting aside nature preserves is to provide protective places where native species can flourish. To minimize the threat of extinction, we try to protect native plants when we can. But because Baker Woodlot has a lot of non-native and potentially invasive species, just looking at the total number of species present doesn't tell us how well we are protecting native species. Over 40 years, Baker Woodlot did have a net gain of 11 species. However, this change was due to a loss of 19 native species and a gain of 30 non-native species. A measurement called the Floristic Quality Index describes the quality of a habitat based on the number and type of species present. Using this metric and data regarding native and non-native trends, the woodlot has shown a decline in forest quality. Among the native species that were lost was the showy orchid, a lovely flowering plant that has not been seen again in Baker Woodlot, and a somber reminder that preservation strategies are not working as well as we had hoped. But Baker Woodlot is just one location. Are native species being lost from other woodlands as well? After describing this trend in Baker Woodlot, researchers also collected data from other similar studies in northeastern United States describing gains and losses over time for native and non-native plants. The result? 10 out of 11 natural areas lost more native species than they gained, and gained more non-native species than they lost. So, although these areas are isolated, they are not alone in the trends toward floristic decline. In areas like Baker Woodlot, a loss of 19 native species may not seem like much, but 40 years isn't a very long time in the grand scheme of things. Baker Woodlot is a floristic island in a sea of development and deforestation. As species disappear from islands like these, the risk of extinction grows. Even Baker Woodlot, with its high level of protection, won't safeguard from extinction forever. Current estimates show that the woodlot loses one native species about every 2 years. Even though native species are disappearing, the only reason why most of them persist at all is because Baker Woodlot was preserved in the first place. Natural areas like these are a critical tool for slowing down reduction and extirpation of native species. Ecosystems are complex networks with a lot of moving parts. Many factors influence how a plant community changes. We must pay attention to the interactions between climate, preserve size, disturbance, non-native plants, pests, diseases, and pollinators to understand the future of our natural areas. As further studies are conducted with an increasing quality of biodiversity data, we will strengthen our knowledge of floristic change and become better able to protect our native biodiversity. Happily, today Baker Woodlot remains a high-quality beech maple forest and supports a significant component of the state's biodiversity and natural landscape. It boasts many native trees and understory plants, including many beautiful spring wildflowers, woodland grasses, and even some water plants, and we'd like to keep it that way. Thanks for watching this production by the Michigan State University Herbarium. If you enjoyed the film, please like and subscribe or follow us on our Twitter account at MSU_Herbarium for more botanical content.